Sarah, you'll keep an eye on participants and let us know when we're ready to go, please.
Yep, no problem. I believe we can start at this point. Wonderful.
I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome those that are joining us. The Barrie Police Service acknowledges this sacred land has been the site for human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Anishinaabeg Nation. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture. We also recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Miigwech. A motion to approve the agenda that was distributed in advance, please. Sarah, can you help me out? I don't have enough board members on my screen here to.
So moved, Chair.
Arf, do I have a seconder? Please.
I can second.
Thank you, Lynn. All those in favor, or you say nay if you're not, please. Under this.
In favor.
Thank you. Hearing none. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare with respect to the agenda items that were presented in advance? Seeing none, the minutes from our meeting of March the 18th were circulated in advance. A motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Mayor Lehman.
Seconded.
Mr. Khan. All those in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Seeing none opposed, that's moved. Now the fun part of the meeting. We have a number of 20-year exemplary service medals to acknowledge and present and congratulate today. Chief, may I please hand it over to you to walk us through that, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's always an honor to recognize the exemplary work of our members of our service, and sadly, due to the COVID and our gathering limitations, we haven't had our traditional award ceremony. But today we have 3 individuals that we will be acknowledging them with their exemplary award with certificates also from our dignitaries in our community. But I would like to first acknowledge John Lamont. John is sitting in his cruiser, and where's Thunder? There you go. Okay.
It's all right. I don't know if I was muted there. He's here.
Great. So John is receiving his exemplary award, and he has the support of Thunder. But John began his policing career with the Waterloo Regional Police Service in 1999, where he worked as a frontline patrol officer. In 2003, he successfully was hired by the Barrie Police Service and is moved to the Barrie area. He started in operational services and then joined the tactical support unit in 2006. While in the tactical unit, he further specialized in 2008 when he became the service's expert in explosives and formed our explosive disposal unit. Constable Lamont's bomb and explosive experience was instrumental in our 2012 investigation of Virgilwood, if all of those on the board remember that, where he worked very closely with the RCMP to ensure the safety of the entire neighborhood. In 2011, Constable Lamont became our K-9 officer and joined forces with his first partner, Thor. Since that time, he's been devoted to the K-9 unit in his tracking of suspects and finding missing persons. He's been a valuable asset to our service and our city, and he continues to do this love that he has as a canine handler, and as you've seen, his new partner, Thunder. So we'd like to acknowledge his expertise within our province and congratulate him on his exemplary service award. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. And now we're going over to Jim Peters. Now on my screen, he's on the bottom left. I'm not sure what view you have of him, but welcome aboard, Jim, to our Barrie Police Service board meeting. Jim began his policing career in 1999, and he was hired by our service directly. Over the past 20 years, Constable Peter has spent his time in 3 divisions: operational services, investigative services, and operational support services. He is currently deployed to our training unit, where he is our qualified breath technician, or one of our qualified breath technician, and is a level 3 technical collision investigator. In the summer months, he joins our Marine unit and has been one of our Marine operators for 6 years now. He is actually anxiously waiting for our police motorcycle course, which will provide additional skill set to our traffic unit. Constable Peter stays busy at home with his wife, 5 boys, and a passion for golfing and boating. He is an active board member for a charity called Mia Thrives. Mia Thrives is an organization that brings awareness support to individuals born with EB. EB is a genetic condition that results in easy blistering of the skin and mucous membranes. Constable Peters, your work with our organization is truly inspiration, and we also congratulate you on your 20 years of exemplary service.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you to the board.
Thank you very much. And we also have Dan Shaylee that is joining us. I'll just wait to see him on our screen. Okay, well, we see Dan has joined us remotely, and he was hired by the Barrie Police Service also in 1999 after retiring from his professional hockey career in Europe. Detective Constable Shaylee has worked in Uniform Division and Investigative Services. He has spent time in our General Assignments area and Crimes Against Persons unit. During his time in operational services, he had worked very closely with the homicide unit, and his personal career highlight has been working on the Flanagan homicide case. His volunteer efforts are impressive and include our Cults and Cops mentorship program. He represents Barrie Police on numerous hockey tournaments and old-timer hockey game to raise awareness and funds for variety of charities, and he did represent the Barrie Police Service on a provincial hockey team at the World Police and Fire Games several years ago, in which they won the bronze medal. He also volunteers and coaches rep hockey for the Barrie Minor Hockey Association for the past 18 years and has had a positive impact to youth in our community. Dan states that he would not have been successful without the support of his parents, his 2 boys, and he has a very special thank you to his rock and love of his life, his wife. Congratulations, Dan, for 20 years of exemplary service. So for members of the board and in the community, we will be hand delivering the medals to each of the individuals acknowledging their exemplary service, but wanted to ensure that the board was aware of these 3 individuals, and we have a few others that will be joining us through other meetings in the coming months.
Thank you, Chief. Gentlemen, on behalf of the board, first of all, I congratulate you on your 20 years of service and to our community. And thank you very much for that. So 20 years in any job is significant, and we appreciate it. So well done. Thanks very much. And next item is the strategic plan update, which we developed started in 2020. So we have our first year behind us of our 2020-2023 strategic plan. Chief, I believe you might be introducing Inspector Burke. I'll throw it over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Once again, we have Inspector Rob Burke, who you have had the opportunity to see previous presentations on our strategic plan and other items such as our systemic review. So I'm going to pass it on to Rob, and I know that you will have others joining us on the presentation. And over to you, Rob, to share your screen, please.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you, Chief. I'll just share my screen and go through the presentation. It accompanies the report that was distributed to the board in your package. Sorry about that. So my screen should be up there for you. So I just want to take the time to introduce the 2020 year-end report and 2021 first quarter update in regards to the Barrie Police Strategic Plan. The strategic priorities, as they're outlined in front of you, with 3 objectives below each. The strategic plan has been structured through the collaborative involvement of Barrie Police Service members, community partners, and the public. Barrie Police Service has taken these findings from these sources as opportunities to reflect on its accomplishments, evaluate ongoing efforts, and implement new strategies to continue in achieving its vision, mission, and core values, building on the 2017 to 2019 strategic plan. So the strategic priorities as they're presented in front of you: priority 1, crime prevention, community safety, and law enforcement, with the 3 objectives listed. Priority 2, community engagement and collaboration, and once again, 3 objectives listed below those. And the third priority is organization excellence and sustainability. Now, our 2020 to 22 strategic plan initiatives are outlined as follows. Under strategic priority 1, crime prevention, community safety, and law enforcement, 20% of our initiatives lie in that area. Under strategic priority 2, community engagement and collaboration, 36%. And under strategic priority 3, organizational excellence and sustainability is 44%. Now, it would be a great plan to be able to present and say, as we split the pie, we go 33% with each. You must understand these initiatives are living initiatives and a living document. So these numbers do fluctuate as we introduce new initiatives and complete other initiatives. If we look at the status of the initiatives that we have, 20% were complete, 20% were modified, 12% were continued from the previous plan, and 48% are in progress. So examples of a modification, and again, I know we all talk about COVID. Certainly the effect of COVID has affected the way we do business, but examples about how we've modified plans is the implementation of online Barrie Police Service presentations to youth, and that was through an initiative from our community services unit using our special constables who adapted to the students being at home and online learning, and also to the changes in the judicial system in regards to online remand hearings and video remand hearings, in addition to remote testimony, both for officers and for members of the public participating in those. We go to strategic priority 1, crime prevention, community safety, and law enforcement. Objective, visible and approachable police service. One of the KPIs we've identified is increasing the feeling of safety in downtown Barrie and public parks. One of the measures that we use for that is the annual community safety survey. I know we've presented already to the board in regards to the annual community safety survey. This year was exceptionally successful in regard to the respondents. 667 respondents, which looking at 2019 is a 358% increase. From that, certainly gained some insight in regards to the community's perception of safety in the various areas of the community. What this does, it builds on the community response unit. That's our downtown unit. The partnerships with the BIA, and again, it has been a different year in regards to COVID and in regards to the access to the downtown for open businesses and the various events. But our crew unit is still working with the downtown BIA to build on that relationship. There was a grant for new downtown cameras, and I'm very pleased to say that those new cameras have been installed in Q1 of 2021. So we're looking forward to gathering the data from the use of those. Also, the neighborhood policing model was introduced in late 2019, so 2020 was the first full year that we've had that, and that is in regard, and as a reminder, that's in regards to assigning officers to various areas of the community for an extended period of time, and the goal of that is to build the relationships within those areas, so the officers understand the areas that they're working in, and the community knows the officers that are also working in those areas. Strategic priority 1. Objective, safer roads and pathways, reduced KPIs, reduce the number of fatalities and injuries on Barrie roads. Measure, we use the collisions involving injuries report, and we gather that from Accident Support Services International. That's our accident reporting center. They're located here in the new building for that. So you will note 2020, the fatalities are listed at 10 as compared to 2019, which was 4. Just to put this in perspective, going back to 2017, 2020 had a high number as compared to those previous years, actually double the highest figure that we've had. So the traffic unit, in regards to working with this, are using different enforcement initiatives, ongoing ride programs, road safety awareness and education campaigns, and evaluation of technology that can enhance traffic safety. One of these initiatives that was used in 2020 and will be redeployed in 2021 is Constable Scarecrow. That's the use of the cardboard, or the wooden cutout of an officer in regards to the presence in a community. There's also evidence-based research being conducted to strengthen analytics, and that's in regards to high volume intersections regarding collisions. So those are being monitored. Also, our current Sergeant Chris Allport, has created a system in which the public and the councillors on City Council can report different areas in their neighborhoods in regards to concerns over traffic safety. At that point, the traffic unit will focus on that area in regards to enforcement and analyzing exactly what the underlying issues are, and then report back to the specific councillor so the councillor can then address that in town hall meetings and advise their constituents that they were heard. Supportive victim services, this is still under strategic priority 1, increase the number of victimization reports. These statistics here, the measure we're using is COP Logic, and that's the online reporting in regards to that. So it allows citizens to easily report online incidents, including damage to property or vehicles, theft from vehicles, traffic complaints, shoplifting, and theft of gas. As you can see, the increase from 2019 to 2020 was 43%, and if we take it back to 2018, we're actually up pushing over 50% increase from the 2018 period. We also included in those, in regards to supportive victim services, community awareness for vulnerable victim groups through multiple safety presentations. We've researched and increased equipment and the resources for Project Lifesaver. We've also expanded the online reporting tools, for example, the bully button and the vulnerable person registry. In addition, Barrie Police Service, we presented nationally the Canadian Framework of Collaborative Policing Response on Sexual Violence in 2021, and also and also the trauma-informed practices. In quarter one of 2021, members of the Barrie Police Service, including Chief Greenwood, went before the House of Commons and presented on legislative change in regards to the Criminal Code's recognition of coercive control, and that was based on research studies surrounding intimate partner violence. Other ways we've tried to increase our number of victimization reports and support victim services. Again, our COAST program, working with Canadian Mental Health Association, Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre in regards to our transfer of care protocol, and that's specifically in regards to dealing with persons that have been apprehended under the Mental Health Act, and taking the view from the victim and improving the experience that they have both with the police and through the hospital. The Barrie Police Service also initiated Project Speak Out, which is focused on working collaboratively with sexual violence agency partners to develop a third-party anonymous reporting app for victims. That was soft launched in quarter four of 2020, with a formal release in Q1 of 2021. Priority 2, community engagement and collaboration. Objective, community partner in proactive policing, increasing and KPIs increase the number of community events Barrie Police Service members participate in. Obviously, the measure would be the number of events that we attended, but again, not to belabor the point, COVID-19 certainly changed that, but it didn't eliminate the fact that we did participate in a number of those. Again, I already spoke about the evolution in our schools unit in regards to the online safety presentations, the coffee cup with a cop sessions, and various other dialogue and engagement we had with the youth in the community. Members of the police service also volunteered at various community events and continue to seek innovative ways to maintain our presence there. We also participated in fundraising for a number of different events. Barrie Police is a signatory on the Barrie Health Accord with our partners with the city, with our city and the county and Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre. With the increased focus on systemic issues that we experienced in 2020, Barrie Police also supported the Black Lives Matter protest last summer, in which we presented an atmosphere for a safe and secure protest where the safety of the participants was the priority in allowing them to voice their concerns. We have been proactive in several pandemic-related advisory committees throughout the year, including the EOC, which we sit on with the city and our emergency services partners, teleconferences through the OACP, and also establishment of the Barrie Police Operations Center, and that was stood up in March of 2020 in response to the pandemic. Strategic Priority 2, carrying on, trust and transparency with the community, increase the number and diversity of residents who responded to the community safety survey is one of our KPIs. The measure one of the measures we use is the annual community safety survey. As I'd already noted, we did increase our responses by 358%. We're using all the information gathered in that survey to support other initiatives throughout 2021. The Barrie Police also supported the formation of the Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force. I know the chief supported with the mayor on that. We have expanded our Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee from 7 to 10 members, and we've commenced a systemic review of organizational culture and systems. That involves both internal and external focus groups, so we can understand the viewpoint from both within our organization and within the community. Still with Strategic Priority 2, objective, authentic two-way communication with community members and increase the opportunities to establish two-way communication with the community, demonstrate leadership as transparent and approachable. The measure we're using is the Systemic Review in Organizational Culture and Systems. And again, we also are using the BPS budgetary review process. Internal and external focus groups are part of the organizational culture and system review. Our Dragon's Den pitch program, which is an internal member idea generated program, is still continuing. We received 24 submissions in 2020. 6 were approved, and seven being further explored. 11 are merged with other ideas. In regards to transparent, approachable leadership, Barrie Police Service is embarked on a budget questionnaire in which we received 624 responses, and that was from outside the service. And that was in response to the scrutiny that the Barrie Police Service budget was going to face, and we wanted to ensure that the community had an opportunity to voice their opinion on that, and those results were incorporated into our response. Strategic Priority 3. Excellence and sustainability, safe and supportive workplace, a KPI, increase the feeling of support for members regarding wellness and environmental safety. Again, we're referring to the systemic review and organizational culture of organizational culture and systems, and the COVID-19 related precautions. So the systemic review, and actually the board participated in this, and where we administered the intercultural development inventory to both the board and the service members, and we actually had a very strong response to the service members for participating in that. The internal and external focus groups, certainly listening to the concerns both of the members and of the citizens in regards to the service. Now, the COVID-19 precautions that were put in place, for one example, is a SaniSport sanitation machine, data tracking, and the fogging machine. We also adjusted our deployment back in in the spring of 2020, initially to the pandemic, to manage that. What I'm really actually proud to say is that within the province, the steps that the Barrie Police Service actually embarked on in regards to COVID-19 were used as a measure by many other services, both small and larger than the Barrie Police Service, in which they reached out to us and actually asked how we did it and how we managed it. Still with strategic priority 3, progressive professional development, increase BPS professional development opportunities for member, and this is member conference and training attendance as our measure. Again, COVID-19 certainly had an effect on this, but I would like to say that I think not only the Barrie Police Service, but the entire world has adapted now to different training opportunities, and has actually opened up a lot of opportunities online. One of these opportunities is online conferences, including the Criminology Consortium, which is an academic criminology and criminal justice conference. In-person training has continued at the Ontario Police College, Canadian Police College. Obviously, our members that are attending there are certainly abiding by the safety policies and procedures in place to safely do that. Any opportunity that we are offered to do something online, we're ensuring that the members are taking that, including the CPKN, the Canadian Police Knowledge Network. In addition, eight current members are taking advantage of the education grant to post-secondary institutions. Another one of our online training that we're taking is through Cambridge University in the UK, and I know both the chief and the mayor have actually signed up to participate in this in regards to evidence-based policing. We've currently put over 40 members through that, and I can say that I am on that course currently, so we still have members that are participating in that into 2021. Priority 3, organization excellence and sustainability. Leaders in innovative policing practices. KPI, decrease calls for service that require police to attend by providing more proactive policing measures. The measure here that we're using, one of the measures is the computer-aided dispatch created events. It's a live database. You'll notice that from 2019 to 2020, there was a 10.5% decrease in regards to the CAD created events. Again, I would say one of the factors that we're looking at there is COVID. Certainly the numbers, when you look at the statistics, when you look at starting about mid-March of 2020, that carried on for 3 to 4 months, it definitely was a drop in that. We've also increased areas where we feel that it is assisting us in achieving the reduction in the calls. The body-worn camera pilot project is part of that. The electronic records checks were introduced to lower wait times and reduce ecological footprint. And we also introduced a civilian security camera registry and an online break and enter report registry, which we've simplified the process for victims of break and enters to provide their information in regards to those incidents. That concludes the update for the strategic plan. It has been certainly, when we drafted the strategic plan for 2020 to 2022, certainly didn't have a crystal ball. If we did, we would have put the COVID plan certainly in the title. But as you can see, as we move through the strategic plan, as we're just finishing the first quarter of the second year, we're continuing to adapt to the various changes and pressures that we are, and we're adhering to our strategic objectives and our priorities. What I will do, I will now open it up to questions, and I'm just going to not share my screen so I can see who's actually asking.
Any questions for Inspector Burke?
Oh.
Lynn, then ours, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. And I'm really impressed with how much progress we've made in the strategic plan in this COVID time. I think that's fantastic, and there's not a lot of organizations that can say the same. So excellent work. My question to you is just a broad question around some of the challenges that you've seen implementing the strategic plan, which could relate to COVID, but maybe in a broader sense than that. What areas are you finding the most challenging, and how are you overcoming those challenges?
Through you, Chair, to Ms. Strachan, I think the biggest challenge that we've found is the actual for, again, policing. We would have never thought before 2020 that we could entertain so many tasks where we don't have to deal with someone face to face. So I'll give you an example. Our alternate response unit, we certainly expanded the capabilities of that unit in regards to the incidents that they're dealing with. So that's a big change in the mindset from police in regards to historically and traditionally, we would always go and speak to the person, or we always needed to see someone, where now we're certainly embracing the alternate response unit. And I think you can see from the CopLogic statistics where we're actually expanding that and understanding, I think the capabilities that we have and that we can move into the future in regards to that. And I think that makes it simpler for the citizens that we're dealing with, and it also frees up resources from an operational perspective about officers on the road.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Khan?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and Inspector, thank you so much. I echo Ms. Strawn's compliment to you. Certainly enthusiastic, and you definitely show that you've got a level of enthusiasm for the work that you're doing that is reflected in your presentation. So thank you. Well, the first comment was the fact is it appears that your report is reflective both of the board's the services priorities, but also the community. And I was really proud to see the highlights that you gave there were certainly reflective of the voice that we hear in the community as regular citizens. You did mention, though, one of the things that you mentioned was the fact that a number of the initiatives that you've taken throughout the year were recognized by neighboring municipalities. And at the same time, I heard that you also draw on that feedback from neighboring municipalities and the education that you're exploring and continuing to further your professional career advancement and knowledge. A question that I have is around priority number one, and I believe it was with regard to the camera initiatives that you have installed in the downtown. What if anything, are you learning from neighboring municipalities? We certainly know on the world stage, you think of London, England as that sort of benchmark. I don't know if that's a positive word or not, but certainly the front runners in video surveillance. How is this your plan, or how is your plan implemented in the sense of what is your objective? What are you looking to do with it? Traditionally, we've seen that they're not monitored. Are they monitored? What are you looking to do instead of necessarily boots on the ground by drawing on that surveillance? You also have the neighborhood one, the surveillance program, that registry. Is this part of a bigger plan to have sort of non-emergency response monitoring? And yeah, take it away.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Khan. Thanks very much for that. Yes, I guess you could, and again, from a policing perspective, and if Inspector Johnson was on here, he could certainly add some evidence-based commentary on this. The United Kingdom, especially the City of London, is what I guess you would refer to as a gold standard in regards to video surveillance. So we actually had applied for a grant, and that was to increase both the number and the quality of cameras in the downtown. What we did in regards to the implementation of that was we sought input from the downtown businesses in regards to where they feel they would be most effective. Right now, those are used as evidence gathering. As evidence gathering tools. We don't currently live monitor those. That option is available, but currently they are evidence gathering tools. In regards to the online security camera registry, that was an initiative that was actually brought forward in regards to the Dragon's Den with an idea of when we have an incident in an area, we're encouraging the members of the community to notify or to allow the police to know that they have a security camera. What that does is it saves us time in regards to the canvas of the local area, and it also indicates that they are willing to be contacted to provide any footage that they may have to assist us in investigating that incident. That was the idea behind the camera registry for the community. We've had quite a good response to that. You'll see many of our media posts that we put out. We generally canvass and ask if anyone has any video for that. This gives us kind of a head start where investigators can look in that area, see community members that have registered that are willing to provide any assistance they can, and it speeds up the process of going right to them to obtain the data from them.
So if I might, Chair, just quickly, Inspector, one of the things that we often hear, and first of all, we recognize that your service, the deployment of resources, obviously priority-based, life-threatening, criminal, et cetera, and then as it goes down the chain, if you will. But one of the things that we often hear is the fact that there are nuisance crimes, if you will, that really are lingering. They're legacy crimes. You can pick any neighborhood. Everybody says that their car is getting broken into or unlocked cars are being accessed. Your communication efforts, the Twitter, response to Facebook posts, et cetera, I think do make an impact. And I just hope as a comment that you will continue to do those. And in fact, if there's an opportunity to increase those in terms of education, because there are people who think the police don't bother showing up anymore. And, that's not true, but it's a perception that I think would be helpful if we can address. Certainly.
Thank you for your comment. And our corporate communications team is always looking at new opportunities to keep the message out there, to inform the community what the police are doing and how the community can actually help the police. So we're in this together, and our corporate communications team does work very hard on that.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Lehman?
Yeah, I have a great passion for KPIs and strategy, but I'm going to keep it to one question this morning. Rob, a great presentation, by the way. Thank you. I think you started to talk about how we would know whether proactive policing is effective, and it's very hard to use the metric that we chose because of COVID, because of the impacts of COVID. It's impossible to separate out how much the stay-at-home orders were responsible for that 8,000 call drop and how much proactive policing contributed. Can you say a bit more on how we might test our effectiveness with that new community deployment model and all the other proactive policing measures. And I don't know if I mean, the overall KPI is going to be really important, especially over time, but maybe there are others. I don't know if you guys have started thinking about that, because I see that as, I mean, they're all important. All of our priorities are important, but that one is of particular interest to me because I know we're testing the effectiveness of our new model, and that's a pretty big deal, right?
Mr. Chair, through you to Mayor Lehman, thanks very much. Yes, that is certainly a very topical question, and you know, I think it's a topic on the table for many police services, is trying to you know, effectively analyze how our deployment is working. I guess fortunately and unfortunately. So fortunately, the numbers have dropped. Unfortunately, it was during a period of COVID. So I would. This is Inspector Burke speaking. I'm certain we're going to still feel the effects of COVID, and we still are probably through 21 in regards to that. So we are continually looking at, for instance, I'll use the traffic enforcement in regards to the hotspot for intersections and the analysis on high motor vehicle collisions in at certain intersections, and then the traffic unit has gone there and is either enforced, or there's been projects, and it was through evidence-based side, and that was Inspector Johnson, in regards to marked police vehicles put in that area, and then the data analyzed after that. So there's an I wish I could specifically give you some strategies in regards to that. We're trying to collect as much as we can and try to analyze it in a fashion that determines if it's efficient and effective for that, also taking into account the COVID effect somewhat for that. So I would invite either Chief or Deputy Allen or Deputy Dewsnap if you have any further things to say on that for input. But that's basically, from a strategic plan point of view, those are some of the strategies that we have in place.
And I think it's an overall review that will be conducted. We have Acting Deputy Dewsnap involved in the alternative response, so there'll be an impact on our deployment model from that perspective. And we continue to use evidence-based policing research and technologies and a more encompassing way to evaluate our programs. And from a strategic planning perspective, we are utilizing matrices, so that will help us make decisions. Our ability to report on our initiatives and the results of changes that we implement in our service will be based on data and research and analysis on every project that we're involved in. And that will be provided to the board also.
Inspector Burke, thank you to you and your team. It's exciting to see that the strategic plan is moving forward. Obviously, with a pandemic, there would have been a crutch available to say that that's taken a back seat to other things, and some people may even have accepted that. But we're pleased to see that it stayed on the forefront, and we've moved forward on many of the initiatives. So thank you to you and your team for that, Inspector.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Statistical report. So the first quarter of 2021, our report was in the package, and I would ask Deputy Allen to walk us through that, please. Deputy Allen.
Good morning. Thanks, Chair. And while we're waiting for Victoria to pull up the presentation and share her screen, I just want to take a moment to, first of all, thank all the persons that contributed to the report and really tried to change it up. This will be the new version the board would not have seen before. And thanks for the opportunity to present that. Also with me on the presentation, besides Victoria Tumilowicz, who is responsible for much of the graphics and the design that you'll see, Thank you for all your hard work on that. Danny Martin, our acting records management, taken a real ownership role in this. She is the keeper of much of the data, and without her, this presentation would not have been possible. And with me, she'll be available at the conclusion of the report to answer any questions the board may have. So the data that was used for this report comes from systems that are used to track information, and these are live, and therefore they are subject to experience fluctuations of increase or decrease in the values past the specified date that we've identified as March 31st. Data is always subject to many influencers, and that includes that some of the data may be enforcement driven, and that the Barrie Police Service has implemented initiatives that may or may not have contributed to a sudden rise in the statistical findings, and we'll speak to that a little bit later. They're also influenced by complaints. The public has increased the volume of complaints due to events experienced and or expressed within the community, nationally or globally, and they can be influencers on the data that we present today. Lastly, it's important to remember that the data is not an absolute true reflection of what is happening within our community. The UCR survey collects information only on crimes that have come to the attention of the police, which reflects, Mr. Khan, on your comments at the end of Rob Burke's presentation. The Poisson Distribution, this is a statistical method that we use to calculate normal levels, and these are reflected in our dashboards created by Maria McWilliams, mostly in our IT department. So they will help us see, where the trends are going and if we see any unusual spikes up or down. So during this presentation, we will be looking at calls for service. The data from calls for service is CAD generated. We'll be looking at our provincial offenses notices. These are tracked internally and they're monitored through different dashboards. And lastly, we'll be looking at the different uniform crime reporting groups, often known as UCR. And these are will include a 5-year comparison for quarterly for each group. I've put on here a slide indicating Project Weaver. That was an OPP-led investigation where a substantial number of weapons, including explosives, were seized in our very own community. Our investigative and tactical teams worked closely with the OPP and assisted with their investigation and planned takedown on March 9th of this year. This event occurred within our community. However, the OPP generated statistics do not count towards our quarterly numbers, but they are reflected in our annual crime severity index, which is based on geography. So our call for service, these are, again, CAD generated, and they're not necessarily tied to the specificity of the UCR coding. Call takers assign a call type based on information initially reported by the complainant. Once an officer responds, the UCR information could differ from the call type. An example could be someone is reporting a robbery, my house just was robbed, but in fact it was a break and enter. And sometimes break and enters are reported and they are in fact thefts by our definition. So we are looking at the calls for service for the last quarter, and you'll see on the top right-hand side, the most common call types. These are the first 5 influencers that influenced our data that we're presenting to you today. I want the board to know that of those 5 influencers, typically there could be 180 to 300 influencers in any of these UCR code areas. So these are just the top 5. We're not picking them out for any other reason than they're the most reported in that area. We also are looking at the trends in the past 365 days, and we see a number of areas that have come up a little bit and some that have gone down. Riot events, property damage, and community service events. Well, trends that have been elevated in the last year are other provincial statutes, compliance checks, and 911 call and 911 call hangups. They are lumped together because that's how they are reported in the UCR data. All in all, you'll see that the quarters, the last 3 years, trend very, very similar. PONs, again, this is taken from our own internal data. You'll see that there's an increase of provincial charges being laid, and this can be attributed to an improved deployment model that allows our traffic unit to have increased focus on areas of traffic concerns that are received from the public and the City of Barrie councillors. We're able to efficiently investigate motor vehicle collisions, and we have increased focus on intersections that collisions frequently can occur. Again, you'll see the stats are climbing quite high. Most of that is based on to the new deployment model that we took over some months ago, and we're running a pilot on that currently. Crimes against persons, we saw no real noticeable increase in this group. The top 5 contributors are assault, uttering threats, sexual assault with weapon or cause bodily harm, and criminal harassment. Trends that are down in the last year are sexual assault with a weapon, other assaults, and robbery. Property crime, there was no notable increase. In all likelihood, the pandemic restriction are likely a key contributor to offenses like theft under $5,000, theft from motor vehicles, break-in enters. People are home, stores are closed or with limited capacities. The opportunity to prevent crimes in these areas is quite obviously down. We see our break-in enters are down in the last year based on this quarter. Theft under $5,000 is down, as well as possession of stolen property. We'll be watching these stats closely as the pandemic conditions lift and we get through that. On drug offenses, this is an area where we observed an increase. This category does not include overdose information or statistics within our community. Very often, if not always, drug-related charges are a direct result of proactive police activity and can appear to inflate the crime severity index. Where drug-related charges appear to be on the increase, it may be a case that more resources have been directed to combat social ill and actually indicate positive police activity. So in 2021, in this quarter, you'll see we're about 27 incidents higher than the previous year's quarter, and even more from 2019. But there's nothing on our radar other than the enforcement efforts of our members to show this increase. The contributors in the last, the top 5 contributors in the quarter are possession of cocaine, crystal meth, heroin, trafficking in cocaine, and possession of opioids other than heroin. And some of the trends that we've identified in the last year is that crystal meth trafficking is elevated, possession of controlled drugs and substances is elevated, and trafficking in cocaine is as well. Other criminal code violations. This can include, but is not limited to, again, there's several hundred areas in this coding. Offensive weapons, indecent acts, bail violations, child pornography, and disturb the peace. We did not see any notable increases at all. Bail violations and fail to appear are potentially down, again, due to the rolling court adjustments that has been a product of the COVID pandemic. Most court dates, when someone didn't attend, were just rolled over to a new date where normally a warrant process would occur. This continued for months and subsequently would turn into a bench summons, just basically putting the onus on someone, hey, you missed court, you got to come back. With the summons and the fail to appears, we stopped laying those charges that would normally go along with those processes. And what we expect to see is when the courts return to normal, we'll probably see elevated fail to appear charges. The miscellaneous code, this is one of the biggest buckets in the UCR coding. It's referred to as the 8000 series to us, and it's reserved for internal codes and municipal bylaws. Statistics Canada does not use the 8000 series violations for any analytical purposes. However, it's a large part of what we do. We record and track this information within our RMS to complete analysis, resource planning, and program development within our community. The contributors here that you'll see are Highway Traffic Act offenses. 911 calls and hangups, again, are a high contributor. Police information and assistance are motor vehicle collisions and unwanted persons. Trends that have identified up in the last 365, obviously COVID-related occurrences. Our 911 hangups and calls continue to appear, and people calling in to request for property checks or patrols. And on the downside of the 365 days, we're seeing way less Smoke-Free Ontario Act calls, conditional sentence order calls, and anything to do with Safe Streets Act. I want to note that this slide is criminal traffic violations only, because that's how the UCR grouping works. It consists of contributors that are operation while impaired. And please note to members of the board that from the UCR coding, we are not able to break apart alcohol or drug, but it is our known that alcohol is the major contributor for impaired driving charges at this point in time. Driving while prohibited, so criminal code suspensions, dangerous operation, and evade police, and fail to stop or remain. So these are the highest 5 contributors of the criminal traffic violations. But over the last year, we've seen a decrease in operation while impaired. Subject to any questions, Danielle Martin or I are available. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Deputy Allen, excellent report and summary. It's clear that a lot of effort has gone into accumulating this data and information and summarizing it for us in such a clear and concise. And I really personally like the addition of the trends, so we have a bit of an understanding of why or what's causing the numbers to go up and down. So that's important. I'll open up any questions for the deputy or his team. Seeing, Mr. Khan.
Sorry, Mayor Lehman actually was up ahead of me. If you
no,
want to
go ahead. Go
okay,
ahead.
Thank you, sir. I was holding back because I wanted to give someone else a chance, Mr. Chair, in fairness. But Deputy, thank you. Again, I would echo comments that I made to the inspector. Very nice report, like enthusiastic report, but also, as the chair mentioned, clean, concise, easy to understand. So thank you for that. A question that I had, really one simple one, I think. You referenced trends, and trends certainly of the last year help to shape or influence redeployment. So I recognize that the report is looking back at what was. I'm curious, though, how you can take that and look towards what is. And the question is around, given that, yes, it's hard to escape COVID, but also the fact that COVID influences lockdowns, COVID influences school closures, people working from home. And the way I interpret that is a change in pattern where in residential neighborhoods, perhaps, people are more likely to be home at hours that they weren't in previous years. Children are at home, maybe playing out on sidewalks, front lawns, etc. How does that impact your deployment of resources in a traffic-related sense? Speeding in neighborhoods is an issue for many people. They're at least voicing those issues and those concerns. So how are you taking the knowledge that we have that people are staying home, kids are home from school, and the fact that speeding is an issue? How are you utilizing that data?
Thank you for the question, and it's a great question. And as we roll along through the pandemic, we're seeing more people working at home, more students being at home. Our traffic unit, as Councillor Thompson and Mayor Lehman certainly are aware, are far more in tune now than they ever have been with the problems being reported through members of council to specific areas. We have a number of and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that in traffic, Acting Deputy Dusnap, that's the area that he was in his inspector role up until this, responsible for and was a big part of the change of deployment. So back to that, our change of deployment has allowed our traffic team to work together to strategize and to hear what the community has to say. In fact, we just had a positive report from the community saying, thanks for hearing us and thanks for being out in the area that we're concerned about. And you're seeing those numbers being driven up in our statistics over the past quarter, and with no sign of those changing or going down, subject to compliance within the community and not finding those things. So we are taking a very, very proactive approach in traffic. We are looking forward to these trends. We always look forward to school shutdowns outside of COVID and the summer breaks and those things, media campaigns and efforts to address that. And if there is concerns, knowing that people are home for COVID and knowing that our children are home for COVID, we're on that, and the community has a way through their councils or through ourselves to reach out, express those problem areas in the town, and we're taking them very seriously, and we're acting on them.
Thank you, Deputy. And I have noticed your social media presence with regard to traffic incidents and speeding related incidents recently. So I just wanted to see how that is part of the actual strategy, a shift in the strategy. Thank you for your information.
Thank you.
Mayor Lehman, please.
Yeah, I guess the question I have for Wiley is similar to the question I had for Rob, which is, it's tough to separate out the COVID impacts, obviously, and look at these numbers and understand the trends. I guess the question I would have for you is, when you sort of look at what the experience of the pandemic has been, it's clear there were sort of immediate drops in certain types of offenses and certain types of calls, and some stayed down, others have come back up. What do the stats tell you in terms of the pressures that we're facing right now and that you would anticipate in the last the next couple of months, hopefully the last couple of months of the pandemic?
I don't see any pressures. Things have just really changed, and I think the hardest part, Your Worship, is that we don't know what we don't know. That's the issue with stats. We only know what is reported to police and obviously verified by police. So it's comforting to look at the stats and have those kind of easy one-offs to say, this has to be COVID or this has to be proactive enforcement. There's no question the community is getting tired. We're seeing that in our community, and we're all starting to come out. So we're looking, what are we going to see in our provincial enforcement as it relates to COVID, as we continue to work collaboratively with the health units and the bylaw for the city. But ultimately, we are seeing that COVID has generally reduced traffic amongst the city. It should be reducing the influx of the transient population as we're approaching the summer months, although not totally. It should be reducing many things because people aren't just in the places that they were for when we look at our 365-day trends. And quite honestly, when you talk to academics, I'll bring up Rich Johnson again. He would like to see me present today going back many, many, many more months than this to see the true spikes and drops through the analysis. But what I can say is that we're prepared to take on any challenges, and the most important thing is that we continue to communicate with our community, find out what their needs and pressures are, and how we can assist from the perspective of the police service.
Yeah. So just a quick comment, Mr. Chair, because I've taken it away from both presentations, the strategic plan and this one. It sounds like, as a service 5 years ago, we were doing very, very little analytical work on our data. That we've come leaps and bounds, both in terms of presenting it and understanding it. Where we clearly can't go yet, and I don't expect us to be able to do this during a municipal state of emergency, but where we haven't gone yet is really establishing, I guess, that causation or the connection between our tactics or our strategies and the outcomes we are seeing. We're identifying trends. I think we're targeting resources. We're using the data really, really well, and we're starting to conduct experiments to look at that cause and effect piece. And that to me is sort of 3.0 for us. We were at 1.0 for many years. We went to 2.0 over the last few years in terms of use of data, inclusion of data, and then data-driven practices. And now that key is, how do we take what Wiley just presented to us, what Rob is working on through the systemic review, what Rich is working on with evidence-based policing, what Peter's been working on internally, and sort of take these things and make them cause and effect, and understand that cause and effect, because then we're really taking it to the next level. And I did see that right at the end of the strategic plan. It is a bullet in there for ongoing work. So this is in no way, by the way, meant as criticism, just by way of broad feedback to Mr. Chair. I really like this way of presenting the statistical reports. We've gone through a lot of different iterations of this PowerPoint to try and help us understand what it means about what's going on in our community, and this is the best format yet and presentation form yet. So real credit to Wiley for that. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for the deputy or his team? Okay, seeing none. Oh, sorry, Lynn. Lestrade?
Actually, it was myself. I just wanted to comment on the comments that have made by the board in regards to how we are enhancing our business and our delivery of service to our community. We are looking at the causation. We're looking at predictability and where we need to deploy our resources and alternative responses to meet the needs of our community also. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chief. And again, thank you, Deputy. Well done. There are 7 items in our consent agenda, and I'd like to make it 8 with the indulgence of the board, just to move up the missing persons report. It was, again, circulated in advance, so if that's okay with the board, I would move that to the consent agenda. So that would be 9 through 16. Are there any items any member would like pulled and/or questions or comments? Seeing none, then a motion to receive the consent agendas. Mr. Khan?
I'll second it.
Oh,
Seconded, Councillor Thompson. All those in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. That moves us to your update, Chief. If you could walk us through that, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. You will see on the screen our PowerPoint presentation. Tony will be, Sergeant Tellerico will be working through it. So if we could start on slide 1. From the beginning, Tony, please.
Yep, just pulling it up now.
Okay, thank you. And then it was gone.
Give me 1 minute or a few seconds here.
Okay.
Once more from the top with feeling.
You can see it now.
Okay, we do. Can you just put it from the slide so we don't see the others on the left-hand side, just from the beginning? That would be helpful. Thank you very much. I know that we have had numerous presentations today, so I will only focus on a few items for your attention. So we are presenting a few things just for the board's attention. In regards to the state of emergency and stay-at-home order, we are all experiencing it in the province of Ontario, and the city of Barrie is no different. But what we have seen from a Barrie Police Service and our partners, Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit and the city of Barrie, specifically the bylaw department, we have seen an increase in our calls for service related to complaints, whether it is unlawful gatherings or individuals not complying because they're not wearing their masks in areas where they should be donning masks. But our members' approach to the complaints have been, we respond, we educate, we ensure that people are aware of the changes because we've seen significant changes over the last year in regards to regulations and legislation, and we enforce when appropriate. I would like to highlight the continued work that we and relationship that we have with Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit and our bylaw partners in regards to our approach to the gatherings, the businesses, and the demonstrations. As all of you are aware, we have had multiple demonstrations that I will say are peaceful at Meridian Place, which is a public square in our city. These have occurred over the last several weekends. We have had different organizers to these events. We have been working with the organizers, and we have continued to balance the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in regards to our ability to gather and be heard. But we also need to ensure that people are respecting and abiding by our orders from our health unit, our Section 22 orders, and other provincial legislation. And we continue to be committed to this, and we are working with our partners. Last week, we saw an enforcement approach. This weekend, as we move forward, we recognize that there is going to be further attention placed at Meridian and within the city of Barrie, as we have the leader of the People's Party of Canada will be attending and be what I am terming as the keynote address there. We will take that graduated enforcement approach. We are also going to be including a communication piece with a postcard encouraging people to comply with the public health, not just recommendation, but the legislative piece, and put people on notice in regards to we will be stepping up enforcement in this area. I have provided an update to the board in regards to our workplace outbreak of COVID. We had a couple of members in our specialized unit test positive. Therefore, it met the threshold of an outbreak. Our wellness coordinator, our police operations center, along with our designated officer, have been working very closely with public health and the Ministry of Labor on this outbreak. We are hoping, and it looks like we are trending to it will be deemed over as of tomorrow morning. We're very fortunate that we took aggressive actions to ensure that we self-isolated people that were at high risk and low risk. And we're happy to report that we will be out of the outbreak shortly. We do have members that continue to be tested for the COVID virus. And thus far, we have had 7 individuals tested positive, some related to the outbreak and others not related to the outbreak. We continue to work with the OPP and our partners at Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre and Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit on the vaccination delivery and logistics to our city. In regards to the calls for service and the inquiries we have to our community, we continue to see a slight increase in our calls to the community or from the community to our service. So we had over 14,000 calls into our 911 calls or into our communication on our non-emergency lines, and then individuals seeking support or guidance through our station duty or alternative response unit. I won't speak very much to this because we've had a very robust presentation by Deputy Allen, but would like to focus in on a few items here. That was highlighted throughout our strategic plan and our statistical information. We continue to work on traffic safety initiatives, whether there are continuous complaints or service initiatives, and proactive enforcement. So we still see the routine traffic stops, even though we are in a state of emergency and stay-at-home orders. What we are seeing and what is being reported in the community by subject matter experts, we are seeing an increase in public health calls for service from members in our community, and which is spilling off to some of the calls for service that I'd like to highlight. If you look at the bottom part of the presentation here, we have had a significant number of sudden deaths, which are suspected overdoses. And as you can see demonstrated on the slide, that we have responded to 6 sudden deaths that are suspected overdoses. And these are young people in our community. And although the toxicology reports take some time to receive, the number do suggest an increase in drug overdose deaths since the start of this year. Our service continues to work with our various community partners to reduce the prevalence of opiates within our community. And if you remember, we are part of the Simcoe-Muskoka drug strategy, and we are represented on the enforcement pillar with our partners with the OPP, and our efforts continue to be focused on the availability of these substances that are fatal in our community, whether it's through social media campaigns and enforcement strategies. So we continue to explore other avenues to reduce the opiate crisis in our community. Just noted a few things in regards to our violence and robberies in our community, and these are just a snapshot of a few of our occurrences over the last month. We've had a victim was robbed of drugs and personal items in one of our parquettes. No weapons were used, but the victim did receive some injuries in regards to it. But the suspect was identified, and an 18-year-old male was arrested and charged with robbery, uttering threats, and failed to comply with a previous release order. When we did arrest him, we did locate a knife hidden on his person, and he was also charged with weapons for a dangerous purpose. We responded also to a 36-year-old male banishing a knife at a taxi driver, and that he be demanded to his destination of choice. The male was arrested and faces numerous charges involving robbery, possessions of weapons for a dangerous purpose, carry concealed weapons, possession of stolen property, and failing to comply with probation. So you know that there are people on previous releases that we continue to see cycled through the criminal justice system. We also had a incident where we investigated a suspicious male in a vehicle, and it was discovered that he was wanted by another police service. He was arrested on the strength of a warrant and taken into custody. When we did search the individual, we were able to locate the prohibited weapon on his person, and he was charged with that offense also, and once again failing to comply with a previous release order. He was held for a bail hearing. The next 2 robberies are we suspect is the same modus operandus and the same meal, robbing a convenience store, and has used a weapon in one incident, which was a machete, and demanded cash. Both times we were notified. We did set up a K9 track, but we're unsuccessful, so we continue to be involved in those investigations. We had, and Deputy Allen has been reporting for the first part of the month in regards, or part of the year, that we've had some impaired by drugs and alcohol, and we are seeing drugs also as a form of an intoxicant, and people are still getting behind the wheel of a vehicle. The last slide is just a quick highlight of some of the things that we've been participating in as a service. And even though we're not able to always engage with the community directly, we have participated in virtual spring break activities for the youth in our community. And so we continue to do this today and tomorrow. And then we know that children will be back online learning next week. I had the opportunity to participate in a national symposium on reinventing the criminal justice system, focusing on justice reform and the pandemic. We should see a report from that symposium shortly, and I will be providing it to members of the board. We also, as a service, had the opportunity to participate in trauma-informed policing. This was led by the Barrie Police Service. It was a provincial initiative that we led, and it was understanding the neurobiology of trauma, and thank the team that was involved in that, including Staff Sergeant Val Gates in that area. And just this week, I participated in a press conference relating to Clare's Law, which is Intimate Partner Violence Disclosure Act. It went before the legislative, but on second reading, it did not pass. But I will continue to work with the subject matter experts and the government to ensure that we do bring something forward in this area. And just a couple highlights for the board. We have a significant, well, not significant, we have an awesome group of communicators within the Barrie Police Service. And this is an opportunity this week to highlight the great work that they do. And they continue to respond to the needs in our community and ensure that our members are safe when they respond to those needs in the community. And just a recognition that March the 20th was International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And with our systemic review that's undertaken, our own internal Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, and the work that we are doing with the BIPOC in our community, we do like to highlight what is happening. So that is a very brief overview of what has transpired in the last month since our last board meeting, and I am open to any questions. Thank you.
Brief but well done, Chief. Thank you very much. Mr. Khan, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief. 3 for 3 on presentations today. Very nicely done. Thank you. I appreciate it. Very clear. Right off the top, one of the first things that you discussed, Chief, was the frequent protests, peaceful protests that the police has attended, observed. You mentioned that they have been peaceful, which is great. To date, the priority had been around education and ensuring the safety of participants, etc. Recently, though, we understand that it has sort of progressed towards enforcement along with bylaw services and other agencies, obviously. And of course, we can't help but discuss or look at some of the most recent civil disobedience, I think is referred to by some proprietors in the community. The thing that stands out for me is clearly there's a lack of education, and you even reference it right off the top of your presentation, the balance of trying to respect the Charter rights and freedoms as well as the emergency order. And I'm curious as to what is the Barrie Police Service's role and position and stance on that education as to what is that hierarchy and who really is, what agency really is locally focused on ensuring that the members of our public are aware of making sure that they have an option to get the right information from trusted sources, because that appears to be the big problem. I don't think it's a lack of willingness or a desire for people to be disruptive. It's a lack of education. So how can you address that for us?
Thank you very much for the question. I would say this is a broader question, not just for the city of Barrie, but the province and the country in regards to our response to the pandemic. We have seen significant changes in the status or the color codes in regards to where we sit. We are at a stay-at-home order, and there are legislative requirements for individuals to stay at home and comply with the Section 22 orders that are in place by Dr. Gardner from our Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. I would say it's a very much a collaborative approach in regards to the education that is for the general public. And I would like to thank the general public for their compliance to the situation that we are all facing. We continue to conduct education and awareness on a face-to-face basis when we respond to complaints in our community. All of the partners that are involved, from the health unit to the city to the county, we provide education through social media, on websites, and personal messaging from the leaders in our community. And we will continue to do that. As we approach, and I'm bringing this forward just because you mentioned it in regards to the protests, we will be taking a higher level of enforcement than we did in the previous protests. We are working very closely with public health and bylaw in regards to businesses. If there are businesses that are operating, it is a graduated approach to the enforcement piece of it, and we have been successful. And we do have the majority of businesses in our community complying, and we thank not only our residents for their compliance, but we thank our businesses. It is a very, very challenging time for all of us in this community, but we all have a responsibility to reduce the numbers of COVID and make our community safe. We want to ensure that our local hospital is able to respond to the COVID medical issues that are there. So I am asking people from our community to comply with the regulations. Do not participate in our demonstrations that are scheduled. I recognize they have been peaceful up to this point, but we will be taking a graduated approach.
Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate your response.
Ms. Strong?
Thank you, Chair. My question is really a follow-up to Eric's question, and specifically around the protests, and because they are so visible, like so many people can see hundreds of people gathered during a stay-at-home order, where there's a specific stay-at-home order that says that you will not gather. And I guess it's just unclear to me around the enforcement that's taking place. And like we've talked about how I'm not sure that, handing everybody an $800 ticket is the answer, but I'm also not sure that just standing as bystanders as the Barrie Police is the answer either, and the message that sends, because we have people in our community, as you said, they're tired and frustrated, and people are missing out on gathering for very important reasons, like a death in the family or a wedding or a high graduation. And, you see these people gathering for this demonstration, and it's making the other folks that are trying to comply that much more upset and frustrated, and perhaps thinking about, well, why shouldn't I break the rules? And I'm not sure what the balance is, but I do think that I've heard comments from people saying, why are the police just standing there? Why aren't they sending people home? Why is this continuing to carry on, especially in light of the COVID exhaustion, really is the best way to put it. So it maybe just thinking about that and speaking internally about how do we balance that and what can we do to provide that kind of support for our community. I think it's just an important thing for us to consider and look at.
Thank you very much for those comments. We do have an operational plan in place. We are working with our partners on a response. So that includes public health, the City of Barrie, and the Barrie Police Service working together on our response. And as I've indicated, we have taken a graduated approach to this, just similarly as our partners in other police services across the province. We are sending a strong message for people to stay at home, abide by the legislation. Those that will be attending the square, if they do choose to attend, there will be the education through written materials to the individuals. We will certainly be enforcing and laying provincial offenses notices on individuals that are organizing and potentially attending the event.
Mr. Khan?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just prompted. I trust this is appropriate for the sake of providing context. Obviously, there's the graduated approach, Chief, that you're looking at. And, you know, we do have members of the public who are interpreting rules, the rules as you're allowed to go out for a walk, you're allowed to go out and you know, for groceries or whatever it may be. There are those who are going out, and even though they're going out, they're taking every possible precaution to be respectful of the order, the spirit of the order, and their fellow resident in public. So socially, physically distancing, wearing PPE, masks, etc. And then there are those who are blatantly thumbing their noses because they believe in what they believe in. And I think one of the things that we noted recently is seeing people who are gathering and protesting and almost, I don't know, having a like-minded people taking off their masks. It's almost like tearing off our clothes. You know, you saw that back in the 60s or 70s, where we're just, you know, throwing it all caution to the wind. And I trust that the police service is acknowledging context. You know, those who are being respectful of each other and wearing masks while out versus those who are showing blatant disregard for all of the hard efforts of those who are working towards trying to end this or mitigate the impacts on the health system and each other's health. It's not exactly a question, Chief. It's more along the lines of your approach, obviously, to this weekend. So I trust that this is, well, I trust that this is part of the consideration.
Definitely, it is all part of the situation and how we're assessing what we do. And, you know, there are ways in which people can protest, but it doesn't have to be face-to-face. There's other tools that you can utilize through petitions, through online social media, etc. We don't have to do it face-to-face. We don't have to do it in a crowd. And it is always balancing the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the legislative response. And, you know, we're looking at the overall safety of our community. We're looking at the resources that we have deployed to ensure that things are assembled safely, but there will be the balance of enforcement there also. But we do have significant resources available to respond to this.
Are there any other questions or in our agenda community concerns, which I think we're kind of dealing with for the chief? Seeing none on the screen. Thanks very much again, Chief, for the update. And our next meeting, everyone, is May the 20th, and a motion to adjourn our meeting today.
So moved.
Mr. Khan, Mayor Lehman. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Be,
Have a great
be well.
Thank you for a very informative
Thank
day.
you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Be safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks to our guests as well.
Thanks for,
Thanks, Judy. Thanks,
Thank
Acting Superintendent.
Thank you for having me.
yeah, thank you for attending.